In the far northeastern corner of Nigeria, a crisis was unfolding. The dam that had stood tall for years, regulating the flow of water to local communities, was failing. It wasn't just a crack or a leak, the entire structure had become unstable. As the days passed, the floods grew worse, sweeping through villages, destroying homes, and forcing people to flee. Government engineers and local officials tried everything to fix it, but nothing worked. The situation was growing desperate. Then, amidst the chaos, appeared a boy, a stranger no one had seen before. His name was Matt. He was only 10 years old, with curly afro hair, an orange hoodie, jeans, and a pair of sports shoes. He didn't belong to any of the local families. No one knew where he came from. But this quiet, mysterious boy was about to do something extraordinary. For weeks, the Nigerian government's top engineers had worked on the dam. Engineer Sani, the project leader, stood on the banks, hands on his hips, shaking his head. "The pressure's too high," he said, frustrated. "If we don't fix it soon, the whole structure will collapse." The engineers had tried realigning the turbines and reinforcing the walls, but nothing seemed to stop the water from surging. Matt had been watching from a distance, listening to the conversations. He wasn't afraid. In fact, he seemed intrigued. One day, when the engineers were too busy to notice, Matt slipped into the dam's control room. He was drawn to the machinery, the levers, and the panels. With careful eyes, he examined the system. Then, he saw it. A small misalignment in the turbines. It was subtle, something even the trained eyes of the engineers had missed. Matt, with a quiet confidence, sketched a diagram in his notebook. He knew how to fix it. The next morning, Matt approached Engineer Sani. "I think I can help," he said, his voice steady but polite. Engineer Sani looked down at the boy, puzzled. "Help? This isn't a playground, young man. We're dealing with real problems here." But Matt persisted, showing him the diagram he had drawn. Slowly, Sani's expression changed from skepticism to curiosity. He called over Minister Abubakar, Nigeria's Minister of Water Resources. "Look at this," Engineer Sani said, showing the sketch. The boy's onto something. At first, Minister Abubakar was dismissive. "This is not a place for children. A dam can't be fixed with doodles in a notebook." But when they took a closer look at Matt's observations, they realized he had seen what none of them had. The dam's failure wasn't just about structural weaknesses, it was about the misalignment of the turbines causing uneven water pressure. With some hesitation, the team allowed Matt to guide them. His first suggestion was to realign the turbines, adjusting their angle so they could handle the immense water pressure more effectively. As the engineers worked under Matt's direction, they started to see improvements. The water began to flow more evenly, and the tension in the dam started to ease. Next, Matt recommended installing real-time water flow sensors. These sensors would allow the engineers to monitor the water levels and pressure at all times, preventing future overloads. Finally, Matt proposed reinforcing the dam's weakened walls with concrete and sandbags, creating a stronger barrier against future floods. As hours turned into days, the dam began to stabilize. The water pressure that once threatened to destroy entire communities was now under control. The floodwaters receded, and the villages began to recover. People returned to their homes, and farms once submerged by water began to dry out. The dam had been saved. Minister Abubakar, once skeptical, now stood before the gathered crowd, shaking his head in amazement. "Matt," he said, turning to the young boy, "you've done something that no one here could have imagined. You saved these people." But just as quickly as he had arrived, Matt slipped away. The villagers celebrated, but Matt, humble and mysterious, disappeared into the background. No one knew where he came from or where he was going. He didn't stay for the praise or the rewards. He simply smiled and walked away, his orange hoodie catching the last rays of the setting sun as he vanished into the distance. Matt, the boy with no known past, had saved Borno. He left behind a repaired dam, a grateful community, and a story that would be told for generations. Where he came from remained a mystery, but one thing was certain, this young stranger had made an impact that would never be forgotten.